Good evening, degenerates. Welcome to the narrative. This is your host, Scott Fitzgerald, aka Lutz for Sale. This episode is brought to you by the Ballsville game. Our games combine fantasy football and poker, which creates big payouts with great odds. This evening, I'm going to introduce a guest. He's one of our game managers. His name is Sean. He's from Sin City, Las Vegas. He goes by S. Clem. And go ahead, Sean, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be here. Really excited about this. I am a gigantic fan of Ballsville. I'm new to the system. I came on last year, and it was probably the best ball I had done, to be honest with you. I joined quite a few best ball leagues. I ended up getting locked in here just basically randomly. I had somebody in one of the leagues that had mentioned a league in Ballsville, and I jumped in and instantly started jumping in every division I could. Got in good 7 or 8 of them towards the end of the main game last year and ended up doing really well. One of the things I want to make sure I kind of mentioned to everybody is that this is such a user-friendly format. It seems a little scary when you first jump in. I can tell you this, being somebody who hadn't done best ball prior and had come in here kind of unknown to the system and the setup at all. And it seems overwhelming at first, but Alex, aka Westlex on Sleeper, who's our main man, he will help you whenever you need it to explain things to you, and you'll pick it up quick. It seems like it might be a little more difficult, but as you kind of get through, especially when you hit those weeks 15, week 16, when he starts putting in all the numbers for you, you start to kind of understand what's going on with it, and it makes it very, very easy to understand. So it was one of those things that, I was a big redraft guy, and I played Dynasty for a few years now as well. And this last year was my first season in best ball. And to be honest with you, I don't think I'm going to do any other best ball except for Ballsville this year, just because I really appreciate that format.
No, that's awesome. And I agree 100%. That's kind of why I joined on. And like I said, it's great to have you. The listeners will get some insight on what you have to offer. So I want to get into the Ballsville game. It is going to launch on April 28th. For you listeners, the Ballsville game is a best ball format. It's 10 teams. The starting lineup, it's quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, which is non-premium, 2 flexes, and a super flex. 6 points per passing touchdown and pretty standard PPR scoring. It's only a $6.50 entry, so it's very inexpensive to dip your feet in. You can get in multiple leagues. It's very, very fun to play. I mean, once you get into one, it's like you're getting into another one and then another one, and it's a lot
Absolutely.
of fun. So those will be launching on the 28th. You can find Westlex on any of our platforms, YouTube. We have a Discord channel. He's on Sleeper, or you can get a hold of any of us managers, and we can direct you to the closest league. So now I want to get into the how to attack these best ball rosters. So the way I like to set up my rosters is I like to go a little quarterback heavy. I like to take 3 quarterbacks if I'm strong, 4 if I'm weak. I like to take 4 to 6 running backs, 7 to 10 receivers, and then 2 tight ends if I'm strong, 3 if I'm weak. That's kind of how I like to set up mine. I also like to use kind of like the like building like you would on daily fantasy, which you would kind of stack your roster. I think that's been very successful for me. So for example, if you were to take like let's just say you would go with like a Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback, later on get a Christian Kirk, find your way into a Travis Etienne. Now you got yourself a little stack as one of your teams. So if you do carry like 4 quarterbacks, try to get those quarterbacks and try to stack them with some of their pieces. You don't have to get the number 1 receiver. A lot of times it's not going to work out that way. But just getting pieces from those high octane offenses is really going to help boost your scoring every week. That's what I've been successful doing, and that's the way I like to construct my rosters. What about you, Sean?
Honestly, very similar. I'm very similar with that. I definitely lean quarterback heavy. I'm kind of been that way with anything super flex. I'm always quarterback heavy. I definitely like to hit quarterbacks and then running backs early because I feel like the depth on the receiver position is there. So I kind of fade receivers a little bit more, and I focus more on my running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends more early on. Snag one or two receivers early, and then get a bunch of them late to, especially in your best ball format, because you'll have your Rashid, jumping out there, having a great game for the Saints all of a sudden. He sits on your bench 80% of the season, but he wins you 2 or 3 weeks. So guys like that you can snag later in drafts. I feel like for the receiving position, it's more of abundance in that area. So I always try to kind of fade the positions that have more of an abundance on those types of flash players, per game flash players, and focus more on the positions where you might only have. This year, for example, is a great year. We only have 8, 9 running backs deep that are going to be good, solid running backs. So, running backs this year, I'm going to have to take them a lot earlier because I just feel like we're not going to have the depth there later in the rounds. So, that's going to change my strategy this year compared to last.
Got you.
But overall, I definitely do focus more, very similar like you, as far as the amount of positions. I definitely think that you want to have at least 4 or 5 quarterbacks on your best ball leagues. With best ball not allowing you to do any weekly transactions, you really need to be prepared for injuries and depth. I do like to grab backups a lot of times myself, especially if there's a run where there's not a lot of good starting quarterbacks. I'll grab Josh Allen and I'll grab his backup. I'll grab Lamar and I'll grab his backup later. Things like that, just to protect myself in certain leagues that maybe the depth wasn't there during the draft.
Yeah, and fantasy gamers last year, we saw it. I mean, how many quarterbacks went down?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, early too. Richardson, week 2, week
Right.
3, he was out, and we had Minshew, who was a late teens round pick at the best. And he was pretty much top 20 quarterback or top 25 quarterback for most of the year.
Yeah.
So, things like that can happen. You just got to be prepared. You don't have the chance to do that midseason in best ball. So
No.
you got to kind of have your future gypsy cap on, and you got to kind of look ahead a little bit and prepare for what might happen.
Right. And I noticed too that a lot of gamers, when we get into the later rounds, they're just like they're on auto draft, they're just like doing whatever. And the savvy guys, they're still engaged. That's like what you said. You're taking maybe a backup quarterback on a team, or you're taking a handcuff running back or something, because you never know in them weeks where an injury happens and now you got this guy that you drafted in the late rounds where another guy just auto drafted the rest of his team and wasn't able to pick up those guys. So I always tell people, I love the second half of the drafts, because that's when the other gamers are all liquored up or all checked out, and they're like, forget it. And that's where I love to snap up value and guys that I think are gonna help my team win, because the season's a long season. These guys get hurt, so it's super important to fill the back half of your roster with guys that, especially like you said in best ball, that can just have spike weeks and really help your team.
100%.
So yeah, so that's great. So all right, well then we can move on. We were gonna talk about some Dino ADP, but I got a few suggestions to get into some trade talk. We've had a lot
Love
of
the trades. Let's
I know
talk trades.
everyone loves trades, man. And everyone wants to know if they got the better of the trade, if they got the worst of the trade. I think of it this way. When I make a trade, I don't give a hoot what anyone cares about my trade, because I'm trading for a purpose. I know there's people that impulse trades. I know people that really get into
I'm a victim
what
of
they want
impulse
to do.
trading.
You love the impulse,
I'm
huh?
a victim of impulse trading. I have made some bad trades on impulse moves that have come back to bite me in the rear.
I always like, before I hit that accept button, I'm always thinking, how is this really helping my team? It's really got to help my team. So if I'm trading, I want to trade obviously for a need. It's got to be a need. And I'm not going to be one of them guys that's going to send you some freaking idiot offer that's going to make no sense. When I send a trade, I always send it to where I think, what if this guy sent this trade to me? how would I look at this trade? So I try to make a trade where, hey, am I helping his team too? I'm not going to try to rip him off. I'm going to try to help his team, but yet help my team. So in all reality, you
Great
want,
lesson for people out there trying to trade too. Like, don't try to send out a trade that just to rip somebody off. You're never going to get anywhere with it.
no,
Treat it like you would treat it if it was you being offered that trade.
100%, Sean. I think about that 100%. And like I said, don't feel if you send a trade out and the guy like let's say the guy's like active and you send a trade out to him and you don't hear anything from him for like days, then it's probably a bad trade. And he's probably
Yeah.
just like ignoring you.
Yeah,
So
because he's normally the guy who would have just deleted it if it was. But since you're gonna go send that to him, he's gonna let you stew on it for a few days.
exactly, exactly. So that's how that goes. So you know what? I'll send one out right away. I'll see what we think about this one, and then you find one in our list and tell me what you think. So there's one. The one right here is Rasheed Rice. So we just found out he's in a little bit of a pickle here with his
You
legal
could say
issues.
that.
So it's Rasheed Rice for Debo and a mid 24 third. So I'll give you my take on that. So if this was me, if I was contending, um, I'm not a big Debo fan. I probably would want somebody else. But if that was the only offer sent to me, I probably would trade Rice away if I was a contender, just in case he gets in trouble. I really need him, and I'm not gonna. He's not scoring me any points when he's in the courtroom. So, um, I would take on Debo in the mid 24 third, especially in this year's draft. I think I can possibly maybe snag a receiver that might be able to give me some decent production, maybe in next year, the year after. And then Debo, I can easily flip him for somebody if that I maybe like a little bit better. I mean, Debo's a pretty polarizing guy. A lot of people like to have him. So I would probably do that. If I was a rebuilder, I would just keep Rice. I just feel that, especially being on Kansas City, if he was on like the freaking Browns or some team that's not going anywhere. I shouldn't say that. The Browns are
Panthers.
actually doing really good, but I just think
Panthers is
they're,
a good example.
yeah, that's probably not the best example, but I would keep Rice. He's a good player. You never know what'll happen in the legal system, so I would keep him if I was in rebuild. What about you, Sean?
This one was a close call for me, but to be honest, based on everything that I've been hearing about what's going on with Rasheed Rice's scenario, on top of the fact that based from what I saw of Rice, I'm not a huge like stats guy. I'm an eyeball guy. I watch people and I see how they run and how they look on the field, and that's how I judge. And Rice, I saw a lot of good things from Rice, but I did not see a lot of depth passes. I saw a lot of, short passes, run after catch, a lot of gimmicky style plays for him, where I don't know 100% yet that he will be a solid receiver long term. He could be their gimmick guy. They could draft a guy this year who becomes that guy. We don't
Correct.
know, right? So there's too many unknowns with Rice, and then you add in what he's going through legally. For me, I wouldn't trade for him right now. So I personally would take the Debo side of that trade all day, because exactly like you said, I feel like I can do something with that third. Maybe I use that third to package and move up again in the rookie draft, or use that third to package for an upgrade in another position somewhere with a trade. And then Debo, I feel like Debo's got at least one, maybe two more solid years in him of production, where you could maybe keep Debo, get probably as much, if not more points for him this season, and then trade him for more assets next year. So I personally would go the Debo route myself as well, because I'm just not sold on Rasheed Rice, and then everything happening with this legal situation right now, I wouldn't want to take on that can of worms.
Got you. Now, while you look for the next trade, Sean, I'm just going to tell the listeners a little bit about this podcast. If this is a first time listener, we're not going to throw like nerdy stats at you guys and all this you know numbers at you guys. We created this podcast as just like dudes talking football. We watch football, we go with our gut. Um, I'm not looking at all kinds of stats and throwing out this and throwing out that. I don't want to hear that. Most people don't want to hear that. They just want to hear good football talk from guys that just watch football. And we're just like you guys. We're armchair quarterbacks. We watch football. We see something that that we like about players and we don't like, and that's how we, you know, that's how we rate our players. So just just want to let the listeners know that that's kind of what this podcast is all
There's
about.
enough people out there throwing stats.
Yeah, you can find stats anywhere from you don't have to go to a specific site to find stats. They're all the same. They're just, everyone puts the same stats out there. So Sean, did you find one? All
I did, and this
right,
is
what we
one
got?
that I'm intrigued by this one, and because of the idea of a super flex in the quarterback aspect. So let me give you the players here, and then we can kind of go through this. So the trade was Devontae Smith and Christian Watson for Bryce Young and a 2024 110 pick.
Okay, I saw that.
So basically for me with this trade, I am one who is I'm a little concerned about Bryce Young. With what we just talked about, eyeball test wise, I just haven't seen Bryce Young show me enough flashes that I'm confident that he'll turn that into consistency. So that for me, I think people have him ranked higher than I do. So I look at this trade and I mean, I'm basically seeing, you know, Bryce Young in the 110 for Devontae Smith, who's, a solid wide receiver too, but that's about where he'll be. And then Christian Watson, I would say, is, mid wide receiver too, ceiling potential. I think Jaden Reed is going to be the bigger receiver for that offense. So this one right here had me kind of back and forth because of my dislike for Bryce Young at this point. But I also don't see enough value from Devontae Smith and Christian Watson to give Bryce Young and the 110. So to me, if you put a gun to my head and you ask me which side of this trade would you want, as much as I dislike Bryce Young, I think I'm going Bryce Young in the 110. I'm curious to see what you think about this because we talked about this a little bit prior with as far as quarterbacks, and this one was intriguing to me to see what your opinion would be.
No, you're reading my mind. I mean, you know how much of a quarterback hoarder I am. Quarterback extreme, arms race. You give me a quarterback, I'm taking him. I mean, unless he's like a complete disaster, you're going to give me Bryce Young, who I'm not a big fan of either. I don't think he's going to be that guy that they all thought about. But
Yeah,
I'm still
I
going to
see it
take.
maybe a Baker Mayfield type of
You
career
know
coming.
what? And I'm fine with
You
that.
know,
I'm
I
fine with
mean,
that. I'll take, like I said, I'll build my quarterback stable. Maybe he won't crack my starting lineup, but you know what? He'll be a great bye week fill in, or he'll be somebody if I get in a pinch and I have one of my starters go down, he can get in and fill in for 2, 3, 4 weeks, possibly for a whole season if I need him. And then I'm also getting the 110, which Christian Watson, I mean, are you gonna would you rather have the 110 or Christian Watson?
oh, 110
I'm
all
taking the
day,
110.
especially in this year's draft class. I mean, the
Right.
110 this year is probably going to be around the same value of what like maybe the 106 or 107 was
Yeah.
last year.
So we can easily replace Christian Watson with the 110. Now, it is a random draft pick. You don't know what these guys are going to turn out, but in Christian Watson's situation, I mean, he's got Wicks there now. He's got Dobbs. I mean,
Yep.
you know,
Yep. Jaden
Reed.
Reed.
You got Reed
Yep.
there. Um,
Not to mention Musgrave coming up.
Musgrave, the tight end.
Yep.
And they got what, Tucker Kraft too there.
Yep.
So I mean, it's going to be a spread around offense. So I would rather just re-roll and take the 110. And so basically you're trading Bryce Young or you're getting Bryce Young for Devontae Smith, which like I agree with you 100%. I don't think Devontae Smith's ever going to be an alpha. I think he'll just be a really good secondary receiver, even though I just heard that he may be getting a 4-year, $100 million contract extension, which is a
Wow.
lot of money
Man.
for receiver. But yeah,
Yeah. Especially your number two.
yeah, you're especially your number two. So
Unless they're letting AJ walk. That's crazy.
I don't know about that. So
I know.
how about what do you think about this one? This one was Joe Burrow. So you're trading quarterback for quarterback. So Joe Burrow for Brock Purdy, a 24 206 and a 24 303.
Man, to me, I'll take Burrow all day. I'll take the Burrow side all day. Like I think Joe Burrow is up there. I mean, he had a down season, obviously with the injury and everything, but I think he's up there in your top, 8 quarterbacks for me. I mean, I really do. I think Burrow has what it takes to be a stud quarterback. I like Purdy a lot too, but I don't think the difference between Purdy and Burrow is the 206 and the 303 make it up. I feel like that's not enough of a gap there to make up that trade for me. So I personally would have taken the Burrow side in a heartbeat, and I would have rejected in a heartbeat if I got offered the opposite.
Gotcha. So I'm like a little more on the fence on this one. So
Ooh, I love it.
I know I'm a little more on the fence at this one because I'm kind of looking at this and I'm like, okay, Joe Burrow's 27 years old, going on 28. He's not old, but he's not young either. He's just kind of like in that middle. He's had 2 injury-riddled seasons. So I'm getting a guy in Brock Purdy who's still young, plays for great offense. A lot of weapons, just like Burrow has a lot of weapons. And I'm getting a 206 in this draft, which is gonna land me a pretty good receiver in this draft, and or possibly a pretty good tailback. And even at the 303, I know they're just draft picks, they're just random picks, but I could do what you suggested earlier is I could take that 303 and 206, package that up, and possibly maybe get the 201, maybe probably not the 112 because it might be people like just because it's a first round tag, they want to keep it as a first round tag, but it's just as it's 201.
Well, you could throw in like a W wide receiver 3, to fill the gap,
So
if
now
you
I
wanted
could
to jump to
possibly
first.
move up, even if I package maybe another draft pick and maybe package and get up into that 111, 112, 201 range and maybe get a Penix, like you said. So now I got 2 quarterbacks. I got Purdy and a possible, a rookie project. Penix. I don't think JJ McCarthy's going to drop that far. How about Bo Nix?
It's very true.
Maybe grab a Bo
Especially
Nix.
if he ends up in like Denver,
Right.
something like that.
Or I got Purdy and I just move up into the 111, 112 and grab an elite, one of those receivers or one of them, or maybe the first tailback off the board. So
Yeah.
I know Joe Burrow's an elite quarterback, but I see Purdy as maybe not at elite level, but I think it's his production would be good enough. I don't think the points per week are going to be that big of a difference going forward. That's just my opinion. And like I said, the injury concerns for Burrow a little bit concerning. I mean, the ACL, the thumb, he's coming into age 20. I mean, if he doesn't put up some numbers in the next year or two, is he going to stay at elite status or not? So this guy might be like, you know what? I'm going to bail on him now. I'm going to try to get something for him. I think he could have probably got a little bit more for him, possibly Purdy and maybe a first, like a late first. But I think I'm fine with this one. I don't think it's that big of a like you said earlier. I'm just gonna like accept, decline right away.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to think about this one for a little bit, and I think if depending what my roster looked like, if I was maybe in a little bit of a rebuild, I probably would take this offer.
See, and definitely roster construction makes a difference, but I just maybe I'm not as high on Purdy as everybody else is. I like the kid. I think he's good, but he's also, in my opinion, he's kind of like a product of the system in a way, and he's really been benefiting a lot from having that team around him. So, but that team is still there. The coach is still there. They're not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. So, it could turn around to bite me in the rear because I don't feel as good about Purdy as everybody else. But it's definitely I feel like I maybe just I have that much more confidence in Burrow, and I like Chase and I like Higgins. If they can keep Higgins and Chase together on that team with Burrow, I feel like he's going to have at least 4 or 5 more solid seasons under his belt.
Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah, I think there was another quarterback that was in that they called a system quarterback, and I think his name.
How dare you bring that man up on my pod?
I think his name is Tom Brady. So I think he did pretty well in the system. All right,
You got me there. I can't argue that one.
all right, let's find what was that other one we saw with, was it had Richardson in it? Is that the one you
Yes.
wanted to talk about?
Yeah, there was so we had one more that I definitely wanted to
Or
go over
or
here.
was it that or the Herbert one? Let's
We could
talk
do
about the
either
Herbert
one.
one.
You want to do the Herbert?
Yeah, let's talk about the Herbert one.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
because
now we got, and this is from C Bombs. We're bringing this up because he wrote in the Discord. He was excited about us talking about trades. So C Bomb, this goes out to you. We're going to talk about your trade here. So C Bomb is
don't hate me.
he's sending Justin Herbert, um, was it Ferguson from Dallas, a 24 110 and a 24 210, and he's getting back Drake London, Kendre Miller, a 25 first, which is a random first. You don't know where that's at. And then 24 1.5. Go ahead, Sean, tear it up.
Uh, all right, C-Bum. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be friends eventually, but you might hate me here for a little bit. I am totally against this trade for you, man. I am against trading away a top 5 quarterback and a super flex unless you're getting an immense haul. And I don't feel like this is a big enough haul for Justin Herbert. And then you're adding in Jake Ferguson, and then you're adding in the 110, and then you're adding in the 210. It just does not fit for me. I know he's getting back 2 first rounders. Like you mentioned, one we know is the 105 for this year, but we have no idea where that next one's going to fall. We've got Drake London, Kendre Miller, who's still a backup. They say he's showing some stuff and he's gonna take over and yada yada yada, but he's not there yet. So at this point, you can't count on those fantasy points for this season. So I mean, unless he's in like a full-on rebuild mode with this team, not knowing his roster, it's a little harder to evaluate. But I mean, it's got to be a pretty difficult situation for me to give up Herbert for that haul, in my opinion. And that's just Herbert. I'm not even accounting for the other 3 additions to that trade with Ferguson and the 2 picks. So, to me, I'm just not a fan of it myself, but I'm always a quarterback guy too. So that might be my opinion being skewed a little bit from that. But that's just where I stand right now. I really like what London's going to bring to the table moving forward this year. I have no idea what he's going to be able to get with the 105, and probably get a nice receiver, maybe get lucky enough to have a QB fall to him. But if he doesn't have quarterback depth after trading away Herbert, I'm confused as to why he would do it.
No, I agree. Like again, I'm such, a quarterback extreme guy. I'm not giving away a quarterback, especially an elite quarterback, and not getting a quarterback back. At the
Yeah.
105, that doesn't guarantee me. I mean, I guess you probably could get a quarterback if JJ McCarthy was there, if you like JJ McCarthy, but or Drake May if they end up being there. But I'm not giving away an elite quarterback. I'm not doing it. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to come in this year and he's really going to ignite that offense. I know people are going to say, "Oh, they don't have Mike Williams, they don't have Keenan Allen anymore."
Now they could have Malik Neighbors by the end of the month.
Exactly. They could have Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison.
Or Marvin, yeah. I mean,
what's going to happen.
if JJ gets taken 4 overall, like a lot of people are talking about the Vikings trading up, if that happens, and Harrison's sitting there, I think it's really, really difficult to pass him up if you're sitting there at 4 with him on the board or 5 with him on the board.
Yeah.
Especially being their receiver depth is just not there anymore. They got Josh Palmer and why am I blanking? Quentin Johnston.
Quentin Johnson.
Are they 1 and 2 right now? So neither of them have shown that they're capable of being even a number 2 in the league yet. So we still need to see more before we can trust them. I think that's actually a really good kind of talking point that I want to kind of get your opinion on is, do you think that this trade happened because of the Harbaugh hire and people being so down on Herbert right now because they think they're going to be so run heavy that he's not going to really be the point producer that he used to be?
That's 100% what I'm thinking. You know what? If I'm to all my dynasty teammates out there, if anyone wants to give me Justin Herbert, I will gladly take him off your hands.
I will second that.
Yeah, so,
I will say I have been sending offers up the to get him on as many teams as I can.
Yeah,
because I feel like now is the time.
Exactly. Like I said, you're not going to get, if you're ever going to acquire Justin Herbert, this is the time to do it because he's going to be back to where he needs to be. He is an elite signal caller.
And people forget that he can run.
Yeah.
You know, just because he doesn't do it often doesn't mean that he can't. The man ran a lot when he was in college, and he can run the ball when he wants to. And I would not be surprised if they don't give him the open door to go ahead and do that when he wants to.
And you got to
So
remember,
we
Jim
can start
Harbaugh.
seeing rushing
You
yards.
got to remember too. Jim Harbaugh was a quarterback in the NFL. And people think
Yep.
he's just going to run the ball all the time. He ran the ball all the time at Michigan was because he had an elite offensive line. He had two great running backs in Edwards and Corum. And if he didn't have that setup and he had like the receivers and just McCarthy and no running game, he was going to throw the ball. So
Yep.
he's going to use his best player. McCarthy was not his best player in college. I'm sorry to say that, but it was the running game and the offensive line that won that national championship. It wasn't on the arm of McCarthy. So
Yep.
that goes for another day in my JJ McCarthy talk, which I'm a huge Michigan fan and I think he's being overdrafted. So that's just my
I
take.
agree. I
That I'm
agree.
not a that
I
I'm not
don't.
a
I didn't
homer.
see enough out of him in college to be where he's being hyped at
No,
now. I think if they didn't win the national championship, he wouldn't be even considered top 10 pick.
no, I agree 100%. So, all right. Well, we got through this. So we're running a little bit low on time. So what I want to do now is I want to get into a real trade in the NFL.
Oh, oh,
I
my
know this is gonna
heart is
hurt you,
already
Sean,
hurting.
being the Buffalo Bills fan you are, but I'll give the floor to you and you can go ahead and let me know because I know you have a lot to talk about. So actually I'm gonna let you run with this and you tell me about this Stefan Diggs trade.
Well, so let's say, I woke up that morning feeling like it was going to be just a wonderful, great day. And then I turned on the radio and it ruined everything for me. So I've been a giant Bills fan. Give you guys a little background. I've been a Bills fan for over 30 years. I've been long suffering, as you all know, going through what we have gone through for the last 30 years. So having this team being what they are for the last few years has been like, nothing I've ever dealt with before in football. Like I have never had the opportunity to actually have a team that people are talking about all the time, that have players that are considered greatest players in the league and so on and so forth. So it's been like a euphoric moment for me for the last 4 or 5 years. And Diggs was a huge part of that. We really started to blow up. Josh really became the Josh that we know when Diggs showed up. And it's just been kind of like heartbreaking for me to see it kind of fall apart the way it did. I'm as far as the actual ins and outs of the team, for me, I'm actually like, the more I look into it, the more I feel that we are gonna probably end up in a better place based on the fact that this is the draft that we're going to be able to get a good receiver to. We've got a solid team around him beyond just that receiving core. Dalton Kincaid is going to come on. My local Vegas boy is going to come on strong this year. Guys, draft him if you can. So I definitely don't feel like it's going to hurt us as much as people are anticipating right now. I think that it's going to allow Buffalo to be a major player when it comes to the draft. And I think whoever Buffalo drafts in there, I want to say it's going to be the first round pick. That's my honest opinion. I think that player will probably be the first receiver off the board in fantasy drafts after the top three, no matter who that player ends up being, just because of his landing spot. That's just kind of how I feel about it. I do think they'll get a worthy receiver of that, fourth drafted receiver in rookie drafts. But, I definitely do feel that they're going to basically sell the farm to kind of get the guy that they want this year.
Yeah.
So, as far as the Houston side of the world, for me, I think Houston they kind of showed their hands when they made that trade, right? They basically said, "Hey, we got our guy last year and our quarterback. We came on strong. We're about a year ahead of where we thought we would be. So this is the year that we're going to go all in." So the trade that they made, the contract adjustment that they made after the trade is really what solidified it for me to tell me that they are looking at this year as a make or break, all in Super Bowl year in Houston. So I would anticipate a high flying aerial attack in Houston that's going to come out and try to prove themselves as a top power in the AFC early. And they think Diggs is the man that's going to take them over that spot. So, I'm excited to see what they bring to the table. I'm heartbroken to see Diggs in a different jersey. I think that Josh will be Josh. It's not going to hurt him. I'd be shocked if he drops past 101. I think that would be ridiculous to not take Josh at 101 in a startup. But, I'm also a bit of a Josh homer. So I rightfully, admittedly so, a bit of a Josh homer. So, you know, that's kind of where I stand on it. I don't want to go too long-winded with it and get too into my emotions because I might start tearing up or something. But it's definitely been a very eventful last week for me and a very emotional roller coaster type of week for me.
All right. Well, that's great analysis from a true Bills fan. And we're gonna wrap it up on that one. I wish we had a little bit more time, but if we probably could have more time in the future if you listeners go on our YouTube and like and to subscribe to our channel, it really would help us out, and we can put out some longer content, have more guests on, and really do this the right way for you guys. So I want to thank the listeners. I want to thank Sean for being the special guest on here, and I'll try to get another pot out next week. Might have Sean back and
Happy to do it
Alex
anytime.
back. So yeah, we'll be we're gonna start pounding these out. But yes, please go ahead and like it and subscribe to our channel. It really means a lot to us, and we can we'll really get excited when we see those likes on there to really put out some really good content for you guys, and put something in the comments section too if there's stuff you guys want to hear us talk about. We have no problem. It's that we want to make this your guys' channel. We want to talk about topics that you guys want to hear. So you guys let us know, and we'll do the homework, and we'll get right to it. So I want to remind you guys again for April 28th. That's when the Ballsville game gets going. The league start get going. Get on in there. It's $6.50. It's a lot of fun. You can find us on all the platforms, like I said, and trust me, you guys will have a lot of fun with these leagues. We have a really good group of people. Join our Discord. We have a lot of good people on the Discord, so it's a lot of fun. So until next time, we're gonna sign out. So take care, all listeners, and I'll talk to you soon, Sean.
Yep. Thank you, Scott.